All right, so I would like to welcome everybody here at our Clay Club and Woodpecker event. It's actually second time where we meet in Wrocław. The first event was 1 year ago, but this time is special because we do the event with Woodpecker. So first of all, I would love to say thank you to Margaret and to whole Woodpecker team for organizing that. And also there is one more announcement for Woodpecker as well, because probably all of you already know that they integrated with Clay, and it's super important fact for us because this is the first time when Polish team, Polish company is actually added to Clay ecosystem. So huge congrats. What is the plan for today? We have 4 points. We will start with Sculpt and Clay Cup recap. So 1 month ago was the first Clay conference in San Francisco, and we are coming with a lot of news and updates. Then we are going to move to Woodpecker and Clay integration. This will be run by Damian, and then Margaret will tell you about multi-channel growth insights, and we will finish with pizza networking, so the best part after presentations. All right, so I see a lot of new faces. That's why I would love to make a quick intro to our community. This is official Clay community that we run around the country. Usually we meet each other in Warsaw, but our country is not so big. That's why we have events in Wrocław, and in next year we are going to start events in Krakow. So usually we meet each other once per quarter, and we have events like this. Approximately 50 people, a lot of people connected with Clay, with go-to-market, and we are just sharing inspirations. And besides those big events, we are also doing co-working. So if you are in Warsaw, let us know, and we can do the co-working as well. And one more announcement for us. So there are 2 new faces on board, Lydia and Francesco, that are sitting here. And I want to say, welcome officially, because they are going to help us with running this community. So big shout out to our new friends. All right, so let's move to Sculpt. Can I get the new presentation? So Sculpt was the first conference that Clay organized in San Francisco 1 month ago. So there were like 500 people, a lot of go-to-market engineers, people from OpenAI, from Claude, from Vanta, Canva, actually all of the biggest customers of Clay. They had a lot of presentations, but the most important were actually the features that Clay announced. So we have a small presentation for you to let you know what actually changed. So first thing, free loads of GTM. This is the thing that they showed before even telling you about every update, because they believe that there are free loads that may help you win with the AI noise. So first of all, you need to be unique. You need to know that no GTM advantage lasts forever, and involved to stay ahead. Of course, those rules are not anything new, but even the team that is behind a unicorn is telling us all the time that the basics are very, very important, and you need to have some principles, some laws, and especially the second one is important, because if you have a campaign, outbound campaign, maybe ads campaign, and it's working right now, it may be changed in the next quarter, in the next year, so please remember about that. All right, AI improvements in Clay. If you already know Clay, you know that they handled first-party data and centralized prompting. And the next improvement, so everything that wasn't Sculpt was all about AI and about making Clay even more powerful. And the first thing was called ClayGent Connector. So this is the thing that is coming this fall, and this is ability to connect Clay with any MCP server. So you can think about having data in different places. Maybe it's linear, maybe it's HubSpot, like your CRM, but it can even be Google Doc. And maybe you have Google Doc with tone of voice that you want to use in your campaigns. So right now, you can connect your Google Docs with Clay and use Clay for personalized outbound, but the messages will know what is your tone of voice. So this is like one more thing, one more step to make things quicker. The next thing that I'm super excited about is actually ClayGent Builder. So quick question, how many of you actually used ClayGent? Do you know ClayGent? Okay, we see some hands. So for the rest, ClayGent is the agent that is inside Clay, and it's helping you with web research. So you can send ClayGent to any website to scrape the content, to work with the content, and it's super cool. But the biggest problem with that is very hard to iterate with ClayGent, and you cannot deploy globally. So ClayGent was one agent for one table, and you cannot use it across workspaces. That's why they prepared the new thing, so you can build ClayGent agents within Clay for whole workspace. So For example, we can build a clay agent that finds recent news articles about a company. Nothing fancy. Probably if you do campaign, you use it all the time, but every time you need it to start from scratch. And right now, you can pre-build this one agent that is going to help you every time you do this thing. And the best part is going to create a prompt for you, and you are going to test it for free. So if you want to iterate, you don't need to pay credits. So we are iterating and iterating until you are happy with the result. And of course, Clay is going to tell you what is the best model for that. So there's one thing, and also there is a versioning. So for example, if you have some clay agent that is specific for maybe one portal, maybe in Poland is like Pracuj.pl, for example, it's super hard to scrape it. You can build clay agent, but if they will change something in the future, you can upgrade this clay agent. So you don't need to start from scratch. The next thing, Sculptor, and this is the biggest update. I'm super happy about that because after every Clay meetup that we had since last year, we had a lot of questions from people how to start with Clay. So after events like this, you get a lot of inspirations, you get sparks, you know what you want to do, but the learning curve was super, super high because you needed to spend a lot of time. You just opened Clay and this is blank table. Right now, the change is very, very big, because there is normal interface that we know from ChatGPT, from Claude, and right now you can write like actually what do you want to achieve. And here is a very good example because there is show me VPs of marketing in San Francisco. So basically we are doing research. We want to use native feature in Clay called Find People, but you don't need to click it manually. And if you are not so like hard user in Clay, it's going to be super easier for you to manage the data. And first of all, you see that there is a search for you. So you see some preview, and probably on the next slide, we see that we can even work on this data. So for example, we write here that filter for only people who've been in the role for at least 1 year. So we are dynamically working with this data, and here in the top feature, we see that there is a filters already applied. So we can work with the data even before importing this data to the table. So it's like the research that you can do and you can automate. The next thing about Sculptor is that it's going to be live in your table, so you can talk with your data. For example, you have big table, maybe these are your customers, maybe these are the people that already existed somewhere in your databases. So maybe you want to get some insights, and right now you have a possibility to do it. So for example, we have people right now without emails. So we can write to Clay and reach emails for these contacts. And people that know Clay knows that this the thing that is turned on right now is actually called waterfall. So it's nothing fancy. It's already in Clay since, I don't know, maybe 2 years or a year at least. But right now you don't need to do it manually. So Clay Sculptor is actually taking the knowledge from 7 years of building Clay, and everything is packed in the one feature that is just your assistant. What else we can do with Sculptor? All right, we see some other actions. So get the latest LinkedIn posts from each of those contacts. Still, the next thing that you can do with Clay, but if you are not heavy user, it was quite complicated to do it because you need to read some documentation, see some LinkedIn video or whatever. So right now it's going to be edited and you can just talk with data. Also, very important thing is that you can use the data to draft an emails. So like it's a quicker way for users that are not deep into Clay to work with that. I think that's all that they have here for you. Yeah, there's just personalized copy that they prepared for each of those contacts. Yeah, you can write, for example, I want to. Yeah, exactly. It's not working with the signals yet, so it's not like 90% of features are already added to Sculptor, but the 10% is going to be added soon. So yeah, just AI assistant, but I think that is going to speed up the process much. Okay, the next thing is called web intent. So how many of you have used signals in Clay? Are you familiar with signals or not ready yet? All right, some people. So signals are very powerful things that can help you trigger when is the right moment to write to your prospect. basically in the nutshell. And you have a lot of signals. For example, funding round. Maybe, do you have idea for another signals? Funding round, maybe hiring. Yeah, hiring is pretty powerful. So the next one is called web intent. And we know what is it, because it's the third-party script that you are going to add to your website, and it's going to track the visitors. Of course, there are many tools like that, because there is Airbnb, but it's not working in Europe. There is Lead Finder, of course, plenty of them. But here what is important, that you can decide what is actually the intent. So they showed this, this flow, where we have person or company that is visiting pricing page, then is going to read case studies, and then returns to this page 3 times. And this is what we like. Actually, we can decide that this is intent for us, and then we can use this data, for example, to track your ICP website activity, take action at the right time. So basically the definition of signals. And we have the third one, which is super important, because it's core accounts based on their website engagement. And I think that this is important because when you have already list of your TAM, you have all of your ICPs on one list, and you don't want to burn your TAM, you can decide what is the best time to reach out to these people. And maybe the best time to reach out the company in the next quarter is after they will check your website. So you will get this insight. And if you have limited TAM, for example, 200 companies, you need to be very specific with all the actions that you do, because you can just burn it. And here's the example how 11 Labs uses web intent. So when account hits high score, they do 2 things. First of all, if account is already assigned, they are going to send Slack alert, and there is the notification. And if the account is not assigned, it's added to HubSpot, and ClayGent personalized outreach to these people. But the most important thing, you need to decide what is intent for you. They are just collecting data for you, but you need to decide what is actually important. Yeah, and here is some great testimonial from 11 Labs. Yeah, it's better right now. The next thing, audiences. By the end of this presentation, you will see the audiences live, because there is a longer video that shows a few features together. But audiences are a very cool thing for bigger accounts. And what is the idea here? When you have your CRM, basically this is the database that is most important for you, but some of the data is already in Clay, because you do the enrichments, you do signals, and there was always this issue that you need to keep everything connected and synced. And right now with audiences, you can make the constant synchronization between your CRM and between Clay. So right now, you don't need to import contacts from CRM to the table. You connect your workspace with the CRM, so everything is in Clay, which is super helpful, because you can just map the fields. And probably if you already use Woodpecker, you know this field mapping, because it's very similar to snippets that are in Woodpecker. But you can decide what is in Clay and what is in CRM, for example, in Salesforce. And by doing that, you can import over 1 million records directly to Clay and work on this data. It's super easy to navigate the data, to use dynamic filters. And in Salesforce, in HubSpot, it's super hard to get only a piece of data, like fragmented piece of data, do something with that, for example, enrich this data, and then don't burn what you already prepared in HubSpot. And in the past, you needed to send data to Clay, do something, and go back to HubSpot. Right now, it's just integrated. And the biggest use case for that is just refreshing your CRM. So if you have a lot of accounts, maybe you want to enrich your CRM and see if some people that you had connection in the past, maybe they changed the companies, maybe they were promoted, so you can update the information that is existing in your CRM, and maybe there is a good time to go back to the people that you already talked with. Yeah, example, if the audience is enriched, you can, for example, send alert to your rep. So yeah, just notification about the task, or you can send it to campaigns and outreach. All right, the next one is the sequencer. And sequencer is a little bit tricky, because this is the native way to send emails directly from Clay. And many people think that this is the UI layer on already existing integrators, but it's not. It's just native way to send messages, and actually only emails, via Clay. So if you want to send multi-channel campaigns. Maybe you want to use Woodpecker, maybe other tools. You need to use integrator, like integrations that are already added, not the sequencer. So just to let you know that this is standalone thing, and still you can use integrations. So sequencer is their tool. Yeah, just sequencer where everything is centralized and in the one place. And actually, here is a very good example how audiences and web intent and sequencer can be combined together. So there is a video that is a little bit slow, but we need to wait. And we are going to explain what is happening after connecting your CRM with Clay. So first of all, I'm choosing my Salesforce account. And we are going to do mapping that we already talked about. So name means name and stuff like that. Yeah, so I think that you get what is happening here. And then you can see we have over 1 million records that are added to Clay. So it wasn't possible in the past because there are limits in tables. You are adding those contacts to your workspace. So we can think that right now Clay is like your assistant that is helping you to work with your CRM and the data. So this is super big change because you can think globally about this, how Clay can help you with with just your go-to-market strategies. What is next? If we have those contacts, we can work on those contacts. So we are going to make some dynamic fields. We are going to see how many companies are actually B2B from our CRM. We are going to make some information. I just want companies that didn't erase anything. And we see that there is only 8 of them. And after clicking to this company, we see actually the view, and this is not CRM, this is the data that you see in Clay. So you have preview of your data from CRM in Clay, and here you see activity. Oh, people as well. But in the down, we see that there is activity. So here is actually this web intent that is going to track all of the visits. So right now, as you can see, the data is like, you can work dynamically with the data, and based on that, you can decide what do you want to do. And this is the example how it looks in Salesforce, because actually the data is living in 2 places. So for people that are working hard on the CRM about cleaning up everything, I think that is going to be super cool. Then you can send these leads directly, like those emails to those leads directly from Clay, and you will see how many leads are contacted, like how many are there in progress, and everything lives directly in Clay. But one more disclaimer, if you want to do multi-channel campaigns, if you are happy with your provider, you don't need to use it. You can go with your integrations. So in the nutshell, Sculptor, Sequencer, Clayagent Builder, Audiences, Web Intent, and Clayagent Connectors. These are the things that they showed on the conference. And yeah, and that's it.
In my part, I'll show you the Clay integration with Woodpecker, but I'll also show you a cool Clay table with a lot of use cases and a lot of things you can try in Clay. So to get the integration running, so you're here in Woodpecker, you go to that marketplace, you go to API keys, and you create your API key. Yeah? So you can generate one here, you copy that API key to get the connection with Clay. And then here, you go into Clay under settings, and then connections, and then add connection, and then you pick here Woodpecker. And then you put in here, you can name it as however you want, and then you paste your API key that you have from Woodpecker here. And then you click save, and that's it. And then you have a connection with Woodpecker, and you will be able to send leads, update leads, and prospects in Woodpecker through Clay. All right, so let's show you an example table here. Okay, so we have a table with companies. This is an example table here. And this is a list of about, you can see here, 100 digital agencies from the US. On the left side, you have here the name of the company And because we have scraped that list, we don't have the websites. So the first thing you can do here in Clay, for instance, is to find the company website. There is a very nice block here, and we all like free blocks in Clay, and this one is free, doesn't cost any credits, and goes through Clearbit. So this one you provide just the company name, and you get the company domain. It works pretty well, you can see. There are some empty spaces, as you can see here, here, and here. What you can do is you can do a so-called waterfall, not just for email finding, you can do a waterfall or fallback for finding a domain. Yeah? So you can use here AI, for instance, for this. There's a very simple prompt. You can use a very cheap model here if you want, 4.0 or 5 nano. It doesn't cost much. And then you give it all the information you know about this company, because from this in directory we scraped quite a lot of data points, like the locality, you can see here, company size, the services as well. And then you run this only, of course, if you don't find a domain with Clearbit, because this will cost you money. Yeah? So in Clay you can also have conditions when to run a column, and in this case we only want to run it when we don't find a domain with Clearbit for free. And you get a response, and out of that response we pull out that domain field, and we get, you can see here, the 2 domains that were missing in our previous enrichment. Yeah? So now we have a nice waterfall to find our domain, and we started with a list of company names, yeah, and some other context we had from a directory. Yeah? So if you, there's a lot of value, yeah, because not everyone scrapes directories, not everyone goes to the same, you're not going to the same data provider. You will have maybe a better list that is not so saturated yet. So now we have company domain fallback, and then we can merge it here. You can see domain merged. This field merges those 2 domains, yeah, either found by Clearbit or AI. And if you look at the cost here, so imagine like, oh, this is too much cost. You can see here this, I don't even know how many cents under the dollar that is. Yeah, it's like 0.00052. It's like for free. Yeah, it's probably not even 1 coffee if you do it for a whole year. So yeah, it's very cheap, especially if you use the very cheap model. So yeah, for some kind of like operational or data cleaning stuff, or even finding something out, it's definitely cheaper than your time. And you would have to do it yourself. All right, now we have the domain. When we have the domain, you can see here the other fields. There's like reviews we scraped, review count. So we have companies that have 300 reviews, and we have also companies, you can see at the bottom here, that only have 1 review. We know about them as well, that what their minimum project size is. So like when they start a project with a customer, how much do they bill at least? We have the hourly rate, we have the company size, the locality, so where they are based, as well as a list with services. So what are they offering to their clients? And it's really nice because it's sorted by what they're mostly focused on. So service 1 is their major focus on. So like you can see, this company has like 70% CEO focus. So this is also very interesting information you can then use for personalization or segmentation. We will see in a moment. And you have some other context like company description. Yeah? So now I have this information, and I basically just needed the company domain. That was what I wanted to enrich. You could run some more enrichment here in this company table. I know we have some expert users here as well. I don't know. Some people like to do enrichment here, but I did the enrichment a bit later, because if I can't find an email for a prospect, then I don't want to spend money on the enrichment. So for this use case, I then added a new table here. You can have a new table to find people. And when you find people, you can reference a table with companies. And we reference the table with companies here. And what we did for this example, we can go here to prospects. And then we have the find people query here. And you can see I looked for, I excluded lawyers because we don't want to write to them. We had some people here in the audience that had, some not good experiences with lawyers, especially in Germany. And then we have the other job titles. And of course, this is just a search query for the people. And it will only take into account the domains and companies that you have in the previous table. So it's very nice. Now, if you add to the new table, you can run this again, and it will incrementally add new people to it. And our data from the company table lives here. You can see all the fields really nicely in this object here, and you can access it. You can pull it out as a column if you want to organize your table, or you can just leave them in here and reference them in this object. So now the next thing, because we found people, and this of course cost a Clay credit, so you need to be aware of that. It wasn't for free, all of it, but so far we have been pretty good. And we have found people, and you can see of the 100, we found 39 people, so 40% around. You could also do fallbacks. You know, if you don't find this let's say job title, you could do a fallback on other job titles. But in our case, we have these 40 here. So you can see if we have this data here, like first name, and for instance here you have Jace. Jace is very clever, and he has an arrow in front of his name because he wants to know if someone does cold outbound to him. If that arrow stays in the name, they will know, or he will know. So you can do in Clay, of course, operations, and it's very good for things that you would do in a Google sheet. You can do it here, and you can have a formula that will basically just say, okay, just keep the letters. Yeah? You don't have to write this hieroglyphs here, and you don't have to learn this syntax. This is really great. You can just write a prompt here, and that prompt will be turned into the syntax, and Clay will understand how to do it. It works really well. Like most of the time, you can check if it's right. Yeah, Jace arrow Jace became Jace, and works well. So now we have a clean first name we're going to use in our cold email. And we have some other information, and all this information like job title, location, and LinkedIn profile, which we also want for our multi-channel outreach, we all get from this find people query or enrichment that is built into Clay. Okay, the next thing, as I mentioned already, we have waterfalls. We have waterfalls here as well, and this is a waterfall to find our email. I think quite a while ago now, Clay released this feature here. You can see this is like a button here. You can click that, and it shows you all the steps that this waterfall does, because it's multiple steps. And in my case, I tried 2 providers to find an email. Yeah, you can see here, find work email. This is our first provider. This is ICPs. I use this one because it's cheaper. It's the cheapest, I think, from all of them. And if it doesn't find that email, a waterfall works that way that it will try the next provider. And in this case, you have here the Tagma, and you can see that we found Mark. We couldn't find with the other provider. Yeah, so the value in waterfall is that you can chain multiple providers without having a subscription with them. You can do that all in Clay. And then the waterfall provides a merge column as well, as you saw that with the domains, that if we find it here or here, then it will be merged into this one column, so you can only you don't have to work with 2 columns, you can work only with this merged column later on. And we can close this waterfall, and you just get the result here, so it doesn't clutter the space so much. Okay, so far we have found people based on a table of companies, and we found their emails. So now we could do some segmentation. And for instance, here, there's a very simple segmentation. For instance, here we could have a Boolean field, so a true or false. Is it true or not? And we're looking through all the services that they have, and we're looking if they have search engine optimization in one of the services. Yeah. So we have this company here, and you look into this company. You have service 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. And then we're looking through this list here and see if they have search engine optimization. And they do have that. Yeah. If they have it, then we want to say yes, and you can have this little check mark here. This is a form of segmentation you can use. As a very simple example. You can get more crazy. You can also have something like this here, CEO focus, where you can say, okay, I want to look at the services, but I want to only look at this company if 50% of their service, like say weight, is on CEO. Yeah, and so this company is almost kind of laser focused on, you can say 80% if you want, focused on CEO. And then you will have among the CEO ones, not all of them will have a strict focus on CEO, and you see these 2 do not have, even though they mention CEO. So another form of segmentation, or you can do, find me email marketing service agencies that are, having email marketing services in their services listed. And then why are we doing this segmentation? Well, this segmentation you can do then to route prospects into different campaigns. Yeah. So when you do segment, then within one table, you can move people or distribute your prospects across multiple campaigns. And we have two campaigns, you can see here, add to Woodpecker.co focus campaign or add to Woodpecker email marketing campaign. And so this is actually the integration with Woodpecker. And you can see here, in the integration with Woodpecker, we have our connection that we had with our API key from Woodpecker. And then we can here search for the campaigns. And then we can here map the fields that we can push into Woodpecker. Yeah? We can have all the fields, company domain, job title, all the snippets. So these are like the custom fields you can put in. And of course, LinkedIn and the personal profile here. So for multi-channel outreach. And how to get there, when you do an action, you can do here, for instance, insert one on the right, you go to enrichment, you put in Woodpecker. And then you have those 4 actions here. You have add prospect to database. So this is, in Woodpecker, you have a main database. That means people are in this database that are not necessarily in a campaign yet. And you have the campaign databases. Yeah? So you can have add prospect to campaign or add prospect to the database. And then you have 2 more actions here, update the prospect in campaign or update the prospect in database. So basically you can move data from either add a new prospect to either database, either the global one or the campaign one, or you can sequentially or later on as well update that person if you want to. And all the fields, of course, in the campaign. In this example, as I said, we're using this tag here. We're using this tag here, CEO focus, and only if CEO focus is set, then I want to add this prospect to this campaign. Yeah, so the very simple example of segmentation, we looked if they are focused, laser focused on CEO, yes. If that's true, then I want them to be in the CEO campaign. And now, because you did the segmentation, you can have a campaign that is very relevant to that audience. Yeah? So you do personalization through segmentation in this case. Or like Josh Brown says, the list becomes the message. And you do that in one campaign because in the next column, you take another batch of your prospects and add them to the email marketing campaign. So you have a second campaign here. And this one works the way that we only put people in there that are not CEO focused, but have email marketing services listed in there. Yeah? And now you route the other half or a third of your prospects into a different campaign. And you can see these campaigns here in Woodpecker. So you can see these campaigns here. We have the laser focused one and the email marketing one. And you can see here, for instance, we could have, we can have this person here, Serge Bloom. He was in the CEO one. And here we have our prospects that we sent, 4 prospects. And the way you send them, you can either say, okay, this column runs automatically, or you can run it manually here. Yeah? I usually like, okay, this is not meant because we have to maybe fund the email. If it doesn't have an email, then it doesn't run. So you have all those fallbacks that will make sure that it doesn't run, if there is no data. Okay. Let's look at the campaigns for a moment. So you have here the CEO, laser focused CEO campaign. And this campaign you can see is a multi-channel campaign. You can see that here it has a LinkedIn automation. It has also something called a condition. So how does it look like? In this example, when we go to the edit, so you can see kind of the structure of the email sequence. We have one email, we have a second email here, and then we have a condition. So here we have a condition if they have opened at least once. Yes, then they get more emails. If they don't open the first 2 emails, they get LinkedIn. Yeah, so this is the way you can do, for instance, the LinkedIn automation. This is one way. You can use, of course, LinkedIn in the beginning of it. But in this case, for instance, you would use email first. And not a lot of people use it. And they keep emailing the same people, even after 2 emails that didn't open. And it lowers your engagement of the campaign. But if you do it this way, then you filter out those people that haven't engaged in email for the first 2 emails, and now you can try a different channel, in this case LinkedIn. And with Woodpecker you can here do a visit profile automation, you can do a send requests automation, and then you can do an automation with sending in direct messages. You can fill in the message and it will be personalized for you. Automation here in Woodpecker works through cloud, so you don't have to have an open tab or browser. And the people that engage with email can get more emails, so you can get more out of this list doing the email one. All right, so this would be a very basic example where you just get your list, get your people, get your emails, and then you do a basic segmentation through the data. You can do a scoring, so you can don't have to just do does this service exist? You could say does this service exist? Is the company bigger than XYZ? Is the company in this country? And give it a score, and then based on a score, route those prospects to different campaigns. This is, of course, a very simple example. All right. Next thing, I'm doing some personalization. So I'm preparing some data, and Clay is again good for working on data like you would do in an Excel sheet. For instance, here I make myself a helper column where you have the service list. So it basically just takes all the services and makes a list out of it with an and in between. So I can put that in a sentence. Or I make myself a list with 3, SEO, PPC, and email marketing. Also, for instance, that's an idea you can use for yourself. If you have very long words, you can do acronyms. You can see here SEO, PPC. And instead of search engine optimization, because for email it's harder to read, or longer messages are harder to read and take a lot of space, you can say like, okay, let's replace social media marketing or SEO with some kind of acronyms. So in this case, you can see search engine optimization becomes SEO. And now, this kind of data processing or working on this data can be done all in Clay. You don't have to export your data and work in your CSVs and stuff. You can do it all here. Then we had the minimal project size. I do some preparation here as well. You can see here 1K, 25K, something I can use in the email. The original is some kind of string. You can see here they had something like 1,000 plus. So it's not that nice to write in an email, and I also want to use it more natural, like a human would say. So I'm converting that into something like that. Again, with formulas, you can do that here. Then we do something like a conversion rate. I'll explain to you what I'm doing here in a moment, because it all will come together. This is just like prep work. And then we have here something like conversion rate. So depending, you can do something like this. For instance, depending on a different value, make another value. For instance, here we're looking at, okay, what is the minimum project size? If it's bigger than, let's say, 50,000, then the conversion will be 5%. What I'm doing here is just creating a calculation based on another column. And this conversion will help me to calculate ROI for the customer, potential ROI. But I want to make it more believable. So if they have a very high like a very high deal size, so they probably have a lower conversion. So we're kind of doing some kind of prep work here to prepare this. And then we're creating revenue. So here is a column that for the personalization that will take all this data. So we're taking the minimal project size, we're taking the conversion rate, and we're taking how many leads they could have, 168, because one of our clients did 168 leads a month. That was in a similar segment. So we're using them as a case study, but we also doing some math for the customer, telling them, okay, this is how much ROI you could have if you would be that one customer that we have working and starting with Outbound. So this is the first thing. A second thing, what we could do here for personalization, and we're going to be putting it all together in a moment. Another thing here is this is something you probably maybe seen on LinkedIn. People like to do this. This is an example where you can use AI to generate ideas. So you have all this context from this company. We have like the services, the domain, the company description, and then we provided some ideas for use cases. Lots of ideas. If you give a lot of ideas, it's good. I mean, if you give very specific ideas, what you want from the AI as output, it's it's going to be better than just making stuff up. And then some limitations, as well as how much do I want it to cost me, and the output should be 3 ideas. Well, 3 ideas. And the general premise here is to write a very short 5-word sentence on how they could use Woodpecker in terms of Outbound, with connecting it to the context of that company. So if this company, for instance, is focused on, I don't know, selling furniture, it would mention something about furniture as a use case. Yeah? So you're creating ideas for that are very, 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 very personalized. Yeah? This company had UTU landing experiments in the description that they focus on that. I wouldn't use boost. Again, you would iterate over this prompt and say like, okay, I don't want these words to be appearing in my email. But in this example, you can see it created something very, very personalized. Basically, all of these points are based on the description of the company. The better the context you provide, the better the sentence will be here. Another thing I'm doing here to prep work, here is an HTTP API request. Because if you want to use the integration, you have to have the second plan in Clay. Once you have the second plan, you have also access to be able to use any kind of APIs. And in this case, I used an API from MX Toolbox. MX Toolbox is a tool where you can check, are you on a blacklist, for instance? But you can also check if your SPF is okay. Yeah, so this record you have to for authentication, where you define who can send in your name with your domain. So I can do this at scale for all these prospects. Yeah? So I have this HTTP request, and you can do it for free. They have like 68 requests a day. So you can see here, I have a connection, so I had to set up this connection, but I just created an API key here. And then similar to this we did with Woodpecker. And then you have an endpoint here, so where do you send this request to? And what are we sending? We're sending the domain. Yeah? So for this domain, look up the SPF record. And then there's some settings, blah, blah, blah. And then we get something back, lots of it. You can see, blah, 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 lots of information. And out of this information, there is something that talks about the error, something about the SPF record. You can see here, the whole record, which is very interesting. So if, for instance, you have one company here that, it's a digital marketing agency, but for their domain, for the main domain, the SPF record is wrong. Yeah, so when they send emails now, they might land in spam because the SPF record is not well configured, because it has to have up to 10 lookups, and this one has 13. So it's very specific, theoretically something I would have to do manually, I've done through automation here. Yeah? And now I can use it in my email as personalization. As well as, if I get the SPF record, look, I can see, okay, they have SPF protection Outlook. So if I know that, this is no-brainer, this means Outlook means Microsoft, yeah? So they're using Microsoft for sending. But there's a lot of other things, like MailChimp might be mentioned in there. You have Google, so they're probably also sending from Google. You have Mailgun here. So you have a lot of extra bits of information you could use for personalization or segmentation. Yeah? Segment customers or segment companies that use Mailgun and put them into this campaign. Yeah? So there's an alternative to get data about the tech stack that you don't use just like something like built with, which scrapes the website. Yeah? All right, so what I do here is also create myself a nice sentence. You can see here, you have an error, too many lookups worth fixing. Well, this is basically just preparation for personalization because I have a sentence in my copy that requires this snippet. What else? One last thing before we then look at the emails. This is a bit over-engineering, but I wanted to show you that because maybe you want to try something like that. Because there's this list is basically all digital agencies. They are theoretically competing with each other. Yeah? Maybe if now you have to think about, okay, maybe you have find the criteria how they can compete or where they compete. And for my criteria, I took the services. Yeah. So if someone offers web design, then the other one that offer web design might be their competition. No brainer. But I also looked at like locality. So if they're in the same space, then they're even more competing. As an assumption. This is an example, yeah, it might not, not to be the best example. So what I have here is I basically have the same list again here of those companies, and I have here like a key where I have the locality and the services merged together. Because in Clay there is no lookup for multiple, at least to my knowledge, for multiple conditions. So I had to create a key, and the key here is a merged field of service and the locality. And then in the prospect table, we are looking up a competitor. And you can see here, we have a big list, and these are all the competitors to this company, yeah? Because they all offer the same service. Yeah? And now, because I have the competitors, I want to have a competitor that has a better rating or review count than me. So there is another company that has 10 reviews, and I only have 2 reviews. So now I'm using here a formula, which is a very complicated formula, but it basically, it doesn't look that bad, but it basically looks through all these records, and it tries to find a record that has, or a competitor that has a bigger review than me. Yeah, and this is basically the result of this. And I'm pulling out all those fields here. You can see this one has 35 reviews. Now, let's see if it's going to be like a live demo where it doesn't work, but this one has 35. Might be a meta representation. Everything crashes. Come on. And this one has company. 10 reviews. So yeah, it found someone that has more reviews. Great, 35. And you can make it like find me as close as possible. Yeah, so it's believable if you give. It's about relevancy. Yeah? If you want to name something, it needs to be relevant, whether it's competitor or not. Yeah, and we try to create relevancy at scale here. Okay, so we got this, and everything is prepped. So in the end, I could update that prospect again. I have an update here to move these fields around. And now let's look at like kind of the end result before I finish the presentation. So here we have one person here. We have Aaron, and for Aaron I have this email. Now we can argue about copy. I'm not the best copywriter, but just to give you the example of like the snippets we used here. Yeah? So now here, hey Aaron, I went through your clutch profile. Looks like you focus on SEO and PPC. Yeah? So this is all personalized per company. I noticed that cold email isn't listed there. Imagine your 1K minimal project size times the 10% conversion and times 168. That would be 17,000 additional revenue. This is based on 168 leads. This is based on the customer we had. Blah, blah, blah. So you have like a calculation, ROI calculation in here. Copyright-wise, of course, you can make it better, but this is just to showcase the technical possibilities. For every single company, for everyone on the list, you did that at scale automatically. Yeah? And now you can see here in the PS, I checked your SPF record and it looks like, this is hard-coded. And then this part here, you have an error, an invalid syntax found, worth fixing. Yeah? So we try to kind of hack attention, whether, that we kind of did some manual work, but we didn't really do it. We did it at scale through engineering our table. And then you can see here the second one is about the competitor. So we're trying different angles. Yeah, maybe this person is all about ego. Yeah, they want to be the best. Yeah, they hate competitors. So maybe try this angle. The first one was ROI based. Now we're trying a follow-up with competitor. Yeah? So you can see here. Hi Aaron, your clutch profile mentions search engine optimization. This is long written here because we're pulling it from the competitor in UT. So this is the locality. I noticed that this is the competitor's name. Offers the same service, yet they have more reviews than you. 358. Thinking of ways going ahead, blah, 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 and then you can kind of try to do your pitch. Yeah? Maybe they want to introduce a cold email into the outbound or acquisition strategy. Yeah? This is all about trying to pitch Woodpecker, basically. And then the last example was here with the ideas. So you have basically like, we can reuse the, I couldn't find cold email there. Have you considered adding cold email to SEO and PPC? And then we have here the ideas. Yeah? So basically, reactivate dormant PPC lead with ROI-focused ACE test offers. They mentioned that in their company. I don't even know what it is, ACE test offers. But they have that in their description. And yeah, this is basically it. Once you have this table set up and you are confident that everything is well, you can turn on the auto update and then it runs itself. It sends the prospects over. Whenever you have a new list of companies, you add them to the company table, then you rerun the prospect search thing, and then everything runs by itself, distributes the leads into the right campaigns, and you have a beautifully personalized outreach. And this is it.
Okay, so hey guys, my purpose for today is first of all not to put you asleep because it's quite late and we are probably all a bit hungry and tired and so on and so forth. I wanted to share with you a little bit of insights about cold outreach, overall LinkedIn plus email. Probably I'll talk a bit more about email because this is something that we all stand with a bit longer than with LinkedIn automation. Yeah, but before we just jump into business directly, Who am I, or why I feel anyhow entitled to stand in front of you, even though this is like dramatically stressful, what you probably can figure by my overall appearance right now, to talk about cold outreach. So I've been related to cold emailing for a bit over 9 years. I started with Woodpecker as a junior supporter, and I'm the CEO of the company. And recently, we started to rely heavily on LinkedIn as an automation channel. We added it as native automation. So I wanted to share with you some insights and some thoughts about both channels, how to execute them in a good way, in an efficient way. And yeah, that's basically the point for today. But as Brian mentioned at the beginning, if you want to stay up to date with go-to-market, you need to be ahead of everyone. You need to push yourself every day to try to do something in a different way. And you can actually do it only if you have your basics straight. There's absolutely no way to do it efficiently if you don't remind yourself every day about what is the basics, what is the most important out there, and you keep it clean. Because like then you're just building on a shaky foundation. And as I'll try to put 10 years of my experience with cold email in a short version, I probably had to do some kind of trade-off, so either just, shorter version or less on slides. But I'm not very good with trade-offs, so I just decided to put shit ton of content on slides and in that form cover everything. So I'm not sure how it will perform, but I will do my best to deliver. So when we talk about cold outreach, some of the things will be universal. So about strategy, niching down, understanding how to reach out to people, it doesn't matter what channel you use because you reach out to people and most likely they don't care about what channel you use. It's about grabbing the attention. And there are some things that are different like technology or how you can sequence and stuff like that. So important thing, we'll talk about technology, niche, edge, iterations, layering, and copy. And I'm very proud of this acronym because it stands as client. I know it's not very creative, but I was very proud to figure that. So there is a certain order. So you start with technology and you build up on that. Because technology is like a foundation. If you don't have foundation straight, it doesn't matter what you do on the top of that. So there are certain things that can be like 1 to 0 points if you don't have it. And I'll try to do a recap of what is there and why it matters. Then we'll smoothly go to niche. So how to do market research, how to score it, because sometimes it's very easy to find yourself, or at least I've been many times in this place, that I try to do so many stuffs that it's very difficult to select what I do first, and if this niche is good enough, then I'm trying to reach out to niche that doesn't make sense, and I'm disappointed, and then get frustrated, and then we think, oh, cold emailing or outreach on LinkedIn doesn't work. Usually it's not about the channel. There are channels that we know how to use, and there are channels that we don't know how to use. They are not like good and bad. Then iterations, there are not no good writes, just good rewrites. Layering, because of course we need to sequence it, and copy. And copy is, I think, the easiest to roast and the one that you can make spectacular mistakes that I wanted to show you in some areas. And I feel fully entitled to criticize it because I think I was the worst copywriter in the whole world at some point. So I would be proud to also share some of my failures. If you don't structure it like this, you're basically building something that will be wobbly always, technology always first, and then you'll layer up. And I try to put each slide as a cheat sheet, so if you find something useful, feel free to take pictures or you can reach out to me on LinkedIn afterwards, and I'm happy to send it to you afterwards. Okay, so let's start. Technology, and first with email. Technology is your foundation. If you don't do it correctly, you will not see anything from that channel because it means no one sees your messages. And something very simple but always worth reminding, right now we scale horizontally. Some of you may remember the wonderful times like 8 years ago when we were all sending from our own main domain, 300 emails a day, it was all delivered and we were happy and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, this time is gone. If I would have to teach short history of deliverability, it means it was easy, now it's hard. Things happen. But overall, what has changed, we have a lot of technology that helps us to figure it out. So there is no need to just, be super disappointed. We can buy domains on scale. We can configure domains on scale. But important thing, up to 30 emails from one mailbox, up to 3 mailboxes per domain. Disclaimer, if you send horrible copy that is not targeted, this will not save you. But if you send very good copy from extremely shitty infrastructure, well, the copy is not saving you either. So, it's like a foundation. But this is, I would say, safe formula. Then the warm-up. And here it will be probably controversial. So, I know a lot of people is doing warm-up for 2 to 3 weeks. I accept this fact, at least I try. So it's better to do warm-up for 3 weeks than not to do warm-up, that's for sure. But 3 weeks is extremely short in terms of volume and time for which you will be using your domain and your mailboxes. So I conservatively state that 3 months is something that builds safe foundation. If you don't have 3 months to wait, because that's kind of obvious and typical, just put first infrastructure, warm up for 3 weeks. Start warming up the other one, and then switch when the first one burned. Because statistically speaking, if you warm up for 3 weeks, you will get to the point of burning your infrastructure sooner than later. Of course, again, with the, I would say, dramatically intriguing copy, you can burn infrastructure that was warmed up for 3 months. It's not like bulletproof, but your chances are higher. Benchmarks. I would say with healthy sending, healthy infrastructure, you should observe something like 40% of open rate. And of course, we can have a discussion if this is worth of tracking open rates or not. We partially had it at the workshop. We can discuss it after the presentation, but yeah. Trying to keep the bounce rate below 5%. 5% I would say is pretty high, but still below that. And having backups. And if you don't know or don't use softwares that automate this part, you may feel like, okay, so technical setting means that I need to set up the SPF, DKIM, or DMARC, or whatever else, like hundreds of times, because if you want to get volume, this is what you're facing. Fortunately not. There are many softwares, and of course, if I have to recommend, I'll recommend Woodpecker, because we are integrated with the major providers and so on and so forth, but with all seriousness, you don't have to do it yourself. If you're setting up SPF and DKIM right now manually, you're doing something wrong, stop doing it. There are solutions that can automate that so you don't have to drive yourself crazy. And of course, to build context, you have Clay, and you have many other softwares that can help you to build around safe infrastructure. And about backups, if you don't know how to plan your backups, which is not something that we all think every day, here is the planner. You can take out the picture. This will lead you to basically a Google Sheet, where you can put how much you want to send and what type of infrastructure you need for that, so you don't have to count it yourself.
What would be the best way to check if the infrastructure is burned?
You will see it for bounce rate. If you track opens, you will see that no one is opening your emails if you want to rely on it. You can do inbox placement test if you trust it, or if you have provider that you can rely on in terms of placement tests. And yeah, I would say that those are the biggest things. If you're not sending yet, because assuming that you see open rates or bounce rates, it means that you are sending right now. If you're not sending right now, you can try to do some placement tests up front to define at what stage you are at. But remember that placement tests, like inbox placement tests, are never the 100% reality. This is an indication, but this is not something that will happen when you start sending. So the bulletproof test is observing what kind of bounces and what's the volume of bounces that you receive. And by observing bounces, I mean also going to your inbox and reading what you receive in those bounces. If you receive some notification about your IP being burned, or you being marked as a spammer, or there can be like a lot of stuffs out there.
Okay, so manually, essentially, there's no tool, just put in the domain that would clearly verify if the infrastructure is burned.
Well, there are those inbox placement tests, so the softwares that you can use to try this out, but as I said, it's not bulletproof, at least not in my opinion. And for LinkedIn, this is slightly different than email, and we need to remember about that. So for LinkedIn, we don't have automation or integrations as we have for email, to some extent, because LinkedIn is not accepting per se automations that are external. So every type of automation you use is somehow relying on external APIs or something that helps to automate the actions, not per se utilizing API of LinkedIn. And that means you need to have some safety standards when you start automating LinkedIn. Because I know that a lot of people is very insecure about, okay, if I start doing LinkedIn automation, what could happen to my account? What are safeguards out there? Is it safe? Should I do it, or should I maybe consider it for later? So the first, and this is my golden rule, I would never push that forward, is one automation at a time. This is extremely risky to have a bunch of automations running at the same account in a particular given time. Why? Because you can't control how those automations interact with each other. Physically, if you are scraping data at the same time as you are automating, for example, DMs or connections, there are zero chances that you will be able effectively to connect those two softwares so you know how they interact in what time. So physically, you can give a feedback to LinkedIn that, hey, I just visited this profile, send DM and connection request in 1 second. This is like extremely easy for any provider to catch. On the other hand, we need to remember that, with emailing, with years of emailing, we are used to facts that there are like, quota exceeded errors, like no one freak out when we say, hey, I got quota exceeded error. You just hit the limit and that's it. This is something similar with LinkedIn. We need to understand and learn how to obey their limits and we'll be fine. But I would say extremely risky to have a bunch of automations from different providers running at the same time on LinkedIn. Warm up, because it's like one of the easiest things to figure if you're a provider like LinkedIn, or if you're an ESP provider like Google or Microsoft, to check if your account is warmed up. It's super easy to check if you're accepting connection requests, if you're posting, if you're active, if you're actually engaging anyhow. If your account is fresh, so if I set up my account today and start automation on LinkedIn tomorrow, I mean, this is like sending from fresh domain like thousands of emails, and we don't do it because we understand it's a bad idea. Why? Because it's super easy to catch by the ESPs. Technologically speaking, there's no difference. Both are easy to catch. So if you want to automate LinkedIn on scale, remember about stuff like posting, building connections, organic interactions, and stuff like this. Benchmarks, we can discuss, will depend on niche, but like 20 to 45% of connection request acceptance, 6 to 20 on responses. An important thing, we spoke about backups for email. It's very difficult to have backups in the same understanding for LinkedIn, because how we imagine this? Well, I mean, I had many discussions about like, hey, let's generate fake IDs with ChatGPT and set up many accounts for LinkedIn. I mean, you can try it, but when you get caught, I just truly keep my fingers crossed for you. Objectively speaking, the only backup option is if you have other people from your company that can share the account to be used for Outbound. So be aware of that if you go in bad places, you're either rebuilding your account, that I know we do have some experiences with, or you just get blocked and that's the end. So there's no backup infrastructure in the same sense as you get with domains and mailboxes. Technical settings, I would highly recommend premium accounts. So not free accounts. You don't have to have Sales Navigator, but the premium version. Cleaning connection requests, because hanging connection requests may indicate that your account is inactive, which will adversely affect the warm-up for your account. And limits. So if you select the technology for LinkedIn automation, it's extremely important to have limits observance built in. Why? Because it's very difficult for you to control that. It's slightly different than with emails because you have more than one action. You can just send email. There are no other things that you do with email objectively when you're a sender. With LinkedIn, you have connection requests, you have visit profiles, you have in-mails, you have direct messages, and so on and so forth. Try to rely on softwares that can help you to do the heavy lifting in terms of limits and keep your account safe. Because, as we mentioned, no backup infrastructure. So if you're done, you're maybe not done permanently, but you need to put more effort into scaling up again than with email. And of course, again, I recommend the best tech stack, as you know. Okay, so let's assume we have technology, and we need to figure to whom we'll reach out at first. So I would suggest something that I call niche selection or niche scoring, and we would try to assign points to particular categories. And just very simply, but very shortly, because I know you probably all know about that. So if you're talking about niche, so to whom I'll reach out, try to score it in certain categories, just to organize your thoughts. It's not necessary, but sometimes it helps to figure if it's worth investing into more automation, into more demanding personalization, to put more effort to go there. So first one is, how severe is the pain for your niche? So it's like they're dying or they're a bit uncomfortable from time to time. Because if you have a niche that is starving, they'll forgive a lot. You know, like with the saying of a starving crowd, if you have a booth with burgers, if people are hungry, they will search for food. If people are a bit uncomfortable, most likely they can live with that and they will not care. And also when you reach out to a niche that is extremely tempting to get your solution, they'll forget, like, unperfect subject line, and maybe you could do better personalization, they'll forgive all of that. That's why segmentation is so important and scaling based on the real pain. Then money. Because you can have a severe pain, but people may have no money to pay you. And then objectively speaking, that may not convert in something that is monetary beneficial, meaning no money, no reason to reach out. Sounds cruel, but yet true. Then the growth, because probably you want to understand if your niche is shrinking or is doing well, because even if now there's no budget, maybe in foreseeable future there will be some resources, so it still makes sense to reach out to them. Size, because if TAM is super small, as you all know, probably it's better to think about your strategy more times, because small TAM means more responsibility in terms something goes bad. Reachability, because if you have massively big TAM, but you don't know how to reach out to them, and you need to put shit ton of money to get any like LinkedIn profiles or emails, that doesn't make sense to invest in this niche because it's super heavy in terms of organizing the data for yourself. And important is at this moment, because it can be very frustrating to find the data to reach out to people that are difficult. And you can do it over time. Like, with technology, you probably can automate everything. Just sometimes you need a couple of years to do that. So with outreach, usually it doesn't make sense to invest too much if that's not doable at that point. And then unique fit, because we all know that we need product market fit to basically, communicate the value. From where to get those? Market research. And I would say from the most reliable data sources, customer interviews, like when people tell you what is their pain point, probably that's the most reliable source. Then prospect interviews, network interviews, communities and groups, and of course, our loved one, ChatGPT or Google, which is, I would say, the least caloric data point. And with that, you can capture pains, you can capture how they communicate, because that's also very important. If you talk about the pain that is real, but in a very weird way or unnatural to your prospect, the chances that they will interact is lower than in case you communicate by the way they communicate. And outcomes, so you understand the dream outcomes or failures, and of course the objections, because we all get them and we need to handle them somehow. Okay, so now about the value proposition. If you offer meat to a vegan restaurant, they will not buy, because that's a ridiculously bad idea. Which means it doesn't make sense, or it doesn't matter how much of AI, personalization, subject line testing, signals, CTAs, you name it, you put over that. If the offer makes no sense, there will be no conversion. That's why understanding your niche is so important, because you can spend a lot of money on tech stack, but if the offer is not there and it makes no sense for the people, there's zero chance that they will buy. And it doesn't matter the channel, the outreach, if you personalize with this software or the other, or if you send with Woodpecker or any other software. Think about it as just, the point, the turning point of your outbound or anything that you communicate. And of course, there will be discussion about objections, pains, offers. You will wander around that. That's never an easy path. And at some point, you will find the pain and the offer that addresses this pain. And I'm putting it here because I see a lot of people who get discouraged too easily in the meantime of a process of finding how to communicate to your prospect. So it's a process, and it'll always be a process. And it's important to try to push to the next step until the moment you find the right communication. And it traces back to kind of cliche, but still, Hormozy equation, so the values, the dream outcome, the perceived likelihood of achievement, time delay and effort and sacrifices, and I'm sure that I lost some of your attention at that point because it's very boring to perceive it in that way. But if you think about it from perspective like, okay, so I can basically template it and communicate, hey, this is a dream outcome, and you can get it in time delay with a mechanism that makes it reasonable to believe me that I can deliver that. Because if I can tell you just, hey, you'll get $1 million tomorrow, you're not convinced, right? Okay. But if I tell you, you can get millions of dollars because of X, Y, Z, and it makes sense somehow, it's not irrational, it at least is close to the reasonable thinking, then probably you'll start analyzing, okay, maybe she's not that crazy, or maybe she just wants to give us money or whatever, but there is a hope. And then it should be backed with proof. That's the best scenario, so we have a social proof. And of course, the time delay or the effort that we want to put out there is no effort. So, so the people think that this is very easy to get that. And now when we have all of that, we put the iterations in place. Because, as I said, it's all about testing. It's all about finding the way that you can use to communicate to people. And let's try to think about some example. So we have a value proposition. So someone wants to open a franchise, provide the capital, and the manager is the person running it day to day. So how we can frame it? We can, for example, produce 9 angles. Of course, I will not read it out loud all, but let's take just an example. Angle 1 can be that if you open a franchise, this is your safety net, your plan B financially. The other angle could be, this is your escape from 8 to 5 eventually. The other one is like a logical investment. You basically produce ways that you can communicate something. Then the best option would be try to A/B test it. A/B testing can be a little bit tricky because you can do A/B test that is not objective. So I wanted to share with you the path to A/B testing that can help you to discover the global maximum. Because if you do A/B testing in a way that is not objective, you will just find a local maximum. But what you're reaching out to, what you are trying to do is to find a global maximum, because this is where the market is. This is where is your opportunity. So how to A/B test and beat 95 of people doing it poorly? So pick something that is narrow. Don't overreact with A/B testing, because if you A/B test everything at one time, it becomes extremely difficult to extract any type of data from that. Brainstorm one value proposition and, for example, 5 angles. Create a template and do one thing. So try to test one element of whatever you communicate. So we don't do all of that, because it doesn't make sense. Then, of course, the group, because the group need to be representative enough, so your A/B test makes sense. So let's say 2K prospects, divide into 400 batches. You run it, you repeat it, you find the winners, you recreate the test, and then you can objectively say, that works. With iterations is also important, because ultimately when you do A/B testing, you will find something that sticks. And when something sticks, you can reiterate from that. If you try to test just one angle, you end up with a result, it's working or it's not working. And if this is a failure, you need to start all over again. So that's why starting bold, starting broader makes sense for A/B testing and for any outreach strategy. Now layering. So is there a perfect sequence? I would say for almost every channel I can imagine, the perfect sequence is something opposite to that, so that you don't throw all the information into one basket and pretend it's fine, because people get lost, bored, not interested, they don't have time, many other things. Perfect sequence is like clean baskets. It's segmented. You understand what each piece of the sequence is doing, why it's there, what kind of value it brings. So you can try different type of schemes, but for example, you have email 1, when in thread A, you test value proposition 1 and angle 1. Then for the second one, you add social proof and you test different angle. For email 3, value proposition 2 and angle 3, you understand the concept. You basically try to mix and match and expand on how you communicate, but you don't do it in one email. That's very important, because then it's not testing, then it's just like making huge confusion. And why 4 emails? Because here in the example you have 4 emails. Well, with email number 1, you have like 1% of reply rate, with number 2, 0.9, with 3, 0.6. And as you see further, with email 6, we have 0.3, which means that between email number 1 and email number 6, we have the difference of 3.3x. So it kind of answers the question, until what moment it makes sense to keep sending. And if you need a structure for that, you can always try to something that we call niche stacking. So you can start with niche A, with version 1, and then you scale it like, from month 0 to month 3 and month 6. And ultimately, you try different angles, different approaches, and you increase the volume. And you can basically scale it up depending on your needs and what is your expectation toward the outreach. Okay, and the last one, so copy. So the copy is the question of why someone should pay attention. What's the reason, like why it's relevant? And there are a few things. Actually, Damian shared it with me from his mailbox. So there are a few things that I wanted to highlight. probably because I did exactly the same mistakes, so they feel extremely personal, but those are not my emails, fortunately. So when you reach out to a person, and this is like the view from the mailbox, right? So this is what the people see at first. When you call Damian once, there's absolutely no necessity to call Damian second time, aside from the fact that Damian is fully aware that his name is Damian. The second one, so this is about the length of the subject line, right? So basically this is what you see, and you consume, for naming someone, the space of the first view 2 times. The second one, extremely long subject line, some pieces that do not bring too much to the discussion. And you start with the first view by saying that you don't want to waste someone's time. So you rationally decided to waste someone's time and space in the main inbox to inform them that you don't want to waste the time. That may be not the best investment that the person can take. So don't do things that are a bit cliche, but it's always worth to remind that email don't find us well, even if we are well. No one cares if we are CEOs, CTOs, whoever is there, like this is absolutely irrelevant. And if you know that I'm busy, why you're texting me? You either don't admit, or you just change the content, because this is like pure waste of space, of reading time, of anything that you could waste, this is a waste. Instead, try to write about something that refers to them. Observation, about something that make them feel interested, or I don't know, why it's relevant, why you, why at this time, whatever. But this is just an idea to show you how you can use the space. And I wanted to show you some examples, like for example, this, the subject line with your website, meaning the name of the website, and then it continues to the content itself. So, you know, something relevant showing that you know the person, some context. You can easily scale this up. This is really not a rocket science. The other one relying mostly on curiosity, so have you noticed, and then some type of content following up from that. Because when you get the attention and subject line, you have approximately 8 seconds of someone's attention, statistically speaking. So it means you have 30 to 100 words, one offer, one angle, one CTA, simple language. The ratio of you to I should be healthy, because people usually are not interested in hearing your story, unfortunately. With cold emailing, it's all about them, it's all about empathy and being specific and being relevant, because otherwise that's, again, just a waste of time. Fortunately, there are many frameworks around the world that we can use, so you don't have to figure your own framework. You can use, you know, pass or before, after, bridge, whatever else. You can also use something more modern. I would say, like, for example, the 40 framework by Josh Brown. So, you know, start with trigger, then you make your prospect think, third-party validation, subsequence, and talk. This is up to you, but the important part is that you don't have to figure it out yourself. There are many resources, people tested it, thought about it, and you're free to basically take it and use it. And now about LinkedIn plus email, because this is extremely powerful combo. I mean, I would say doing multi-channel automation is something that can leverage your outbound to another level. But you need to be aware of some things that basically control the game. So LinkedIn, as we discussed, is harder to scale. Stats will make up for that, because as you see, the connection request acceptance, the reply rate is higher than what you get with emails. It's a longer process, because you know, you have usually first the follow, you have some type of connection, you invite people to your network, then you are open to message them almost unlimitedly. There is a risk of being banned, which is a bit different than with emailing, because with emailing you just throw away the domain and you set up new one and you continue. That's not the case here. But you have a direct reach. Your personal brand works on LinkedIn, so it means you're in the same place as you build your brand. If you're posting on LinkedIn, they will see it instantly out there. You have better average stats, and yeah, you get basically this touch that is not there with LinkedIn, with email, sorry. With email, it requires a bit of a text setup. Fortunately, it can be fully automated. Warm-up is a must, so you have this waiting time. With LinkedIn account, probably you have it already somehow warmed up, unless you have never been on the platform. With email, you need to set it up from the very basics. It's a copyright challenge, because you have a subject and body, so it's different. It's structured slightly different than LinkedIn, but then it's easy to scale. You can reach out with email to almost everyone with B2B. So Basically, with LinkedIn, it's not the case. You may find people on LinkedIn, but there are LinkedIn accounts that are just purely unused. With email, I would say 99.9 people doing business do have some form of email. So in terms of reachability, chances that you will not find email are extremely low. And it's cheap. Emailing is cheap now. Data are cheap. So if you haven't tried cold emailing, you should, because it's cheap. And it's a good channel. But this is a very powerful combo, and I would say give it a try. Just to show you some examples, like very basic ones. Usually what we see on the side of our customers, this is like a screenshot from the interface, is basically either starting with email as Damian showed, or with simple steps on LinkedIn sites. So for example, visit profile and connection request, and then on the condition based on the connection request, we scale up the sequence further. Of course, usually the sequences are longer in that type of configuration, but you can plan it over time and basically perform it easily. Or just LinkedIn campaigns as a separate one from email. So as you see here, usually they are structured like visit profile, connection request, direct message from obvious technical reasons. It's better to connect to someone than to send email, because then with DMs, you are unlimited if you connect with someone. It's also good to know that with emails, you always have some type of limits. On LinkedIn, if we are in a connection network, like first degree, we are connected physically, there is no limit, because this is like a messenger. So there is no chances that they can limit that, because that doesn't make sense from perspective of the software. The only thing that is risky is that if you spam someone and they report you for spamming to LinkedIn, that's a bit heavy in terms of managing. So try not to do it. That was the last one. So we survived, at least I.